Hey guys, it's Mrs. Robinson. Today we're going to be talking about the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to be working on these pages that we tore out of your book, starting on page 162 and going to page 165. Okay? But before we begin, I just wanted to remind you of the structure of the Declaration of Independence. So this is a picture of the document, and we're going to study this really in depth next week. But here's the date, July 4th, 1776. This was the very first time we had ever referred to ourselves as the United States of America. This basically is our breakup letter with England. So it starts with an introduction about why they wrote this declaration. And it basically says sometimes it's necessary for one country to sever its ties with another country. And then it says the statement of rights. After the introduction, you can see this long line. That's where it starts stating that all humans have rights that come when we're born. We automatically have those rights. Governments don't give those rights to us, and they list that. And then you'll see this long line. And then it begins the charges against the king. If you consider this like a breakup letter, this whole giant section from here to here, the biggest part of the declaration, is a list of everything the colonists think the king has done wrong. And then down here is our statement of independence saying, because of all these reasons, we now consider ourselves the United States of America, and we are no longer a part of England. And then the president of Congress, the Second Continental Congress, signed it, John Hancock, and then, of course, the delegates from all the other colonies. So this is the way it's set up. And then we're going to turn to 162 of your torn out pages, and we're going to read through this and kind of learn a little bit more about the process. You are welcome to highlight, annotate, whatever helps you understand it better. This is a really important thing that you're learning about. Maybe one of the two most important documents in our entire country, the Constitution with the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. So here we go. Number 2 says, this painting shows Ben Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson working together on the Declaration of Independence. Write why you think it was helpful to have a group work together to create this document. So they give you a lot of lines. Be thoughtful about it. Why do you think they wanted, there really were 5 people on the committee. Why did they want 5 people to write it instead of just one? Go ahead and write your thoughts there. You can pause the video and start again when you're ready. Okay. Members of the Second Continental Congress also read Common Sense. Remember, Thomas Paine wrote that? It was that pamphlet, and he said, it's just common sense that we should be independent of England. So members of the Congress read that, and think how that would help Southern delegates from the middle colonies. It might help them start come around to where the New England colonies are already feeling. So by spring of 1776, this is about a year after Lexington and Concord, many of them agreed it was time to declare independence from Great Britain. So by the spring of 1776, more of them were realizing it. In June, a man named, and you're going to get to know him really well, a man named Richard Henry Lee, he was a representative from Virginia, asked Congress to vote on independence. Can we just do it? Let's just vote on it. But before they decided to hold the vote, Congress wanted to have a written document declaring independence and explaining why it was necessary. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston were chosen as the committee or the group to create the document. And you know what they were called? They were called the Committee of Five. I'm just going to put a 5 there. They were called the Committee of Five. Jefferson was only 33 years old, but people knew he was intelligent, educated, and a good writer. Because of these qualities, the committee asked him to do the actual writing. This is Thomas Jefferson. He's from Virginia. He's very tall. He's very smart. He's only 33, and they chose him to be the writer. You can write 10 times better than I can, Adams told Jefferson, and that's a true quote. He really said that. Well, if you're decided, I'll do it as well as I can, Jefferson replied. But in real life, he didn't reply that easily. He really didn't want to do it in real life. He argued about it. He wanted to go home. He had been at Congress in Philadelphia for months and months. He missed his wife. He hadn't seen her in half a year, but he realized he was the only one to do it, and so he agreed. Jefferson spent time crafting the document on his own. He then shared his draft with Adams and Franklin. They helped Jefferson, making comments and suggesting changes. I'm sure you've been through that in your writing classes, where you write something and then your teacher or another kid helps you make changes. 2 weeks later, Thomas Jefferson presented the rewritten document to Congress. Congress then made its own changes, and we're going to talk a lot about this. You guys, you know this Congress. You know they don't agree on much, right? So they're going to read Thomas Jefferson's thoughts, and they're definitely going to have things they want to change, and they do. They make over 72 changes, actually. And we're going to study this especially. They removed a strongly worded attack on slavery. Even though Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder in the South, he agreed to let his slaves go. He didn't think it was right that we would be writing a document about setting people free from England, and then that we would not set our slaves free. So he wrote in the declaration that the slaves should be free. But then guess what? The Southern colonies said, we won't sign it if you keep that in there. We're not giving up our slaves. So that's another story, but they ended up taking it out. Once these and other changes were made, Congress had its finished document. It was called the Declaration of Independence because we were declaring we were independent from England. Jefferson began by explaining why the colonists should become independent. That's up here. He begins that up here. He spoke about people's rights or freedoms that cannot be taken away. Many of his ideas were inspired by John Locke. He was an English writer. Locke believed that governments are created in order to protect people's rights. But John Locke and Thomas Jefferson believed your rights and freedoms don't come from your government. They come from nature. You're born free. And it's your government's right to protect those freedoms, not to give you freedoms and take it away. You're born free. And that's what they believed. So part of the real quote, these green boxes are real words from the real declaration. And I'm going to have you be filling out these answers. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That means we think these things are obvious. All men are created equal, that they are made by their creator with certain rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are rights you are guaranteed. You are guaranteed life and freedom and the opportunity to go find happiness. He believed that those were the rights people were born with. Jefferson then said that a government, and by the way, pause the video and fill out that answer, and then press play when you're ready. Jefferson then said that if a government tries to take away these rights, people should be able to create a new government. He wrote, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to change or to get rid of the government and to put in place a new one. So write what Jefferson said people have a right to do when their government stops protecting their rights. Pause the video and do that. And then Jefferson's lists of grievances or complaints recorded ways that King George had tried to take away the colonists' rights. And you will recognize quite a few of them, guys. This is just a couple. He has refused to agree to laws that are good and necessary for us. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures, meaning all of the British soldiers supervising the colonists in the colonies. That's not okay. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. He has robbed our seas, meaning taken ships with natural resources on it and taken the goods off of them, ravaged our coasts, meaning taken the trees, the fish, all the natural resources, burned our towns, like it conquered, and destroyed the lives of our people. So now you're going to choose one of these and describe an event that fits the example. I'm going to give you an example. For imposing taxes, how about the Sugar Act? Taxed sugar without representation in Parliament and without permission. So you find another one, like keeping among us in times of peace standing armies, or has refused to agree to laws that are good for us, robbed our ships, taken our natural resources, burned the towns, destroyed the lives of our people. Pick just one and describe it. Pause the video and press play when you're ready. The last part of the Declaration said that because the Great Britain had tried to take away their rights, the colonies had the right to become a separate country, to be called the United States of America. These are the words Jefferson used. We, therefore, this is at the end, guys, when he's making the statement of now we're free and independent of England. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, and remember, this is the first time this is being used, declare that these united colonies are, and have a right, ought to be, free and independent states, and that they have full power to start wars, to make peace, to make partnerships with other countries, to establish trade with each other and other countries, and to do every other thing that independent states have a right to do. So describe the powers that the new nation has according to the Declaration. Go ahead and pause the video. After this section, each of the members of the Second Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock, the President of Congress, signed it first with the largest signature right here. So Congress voted to approve the Declaration on July 4th. They didn't sign it until August 2nd, but we celebrate July 4th as our national birthday, our national holiday, because that's the day all of the colonies, all 13, agreed to be free from England. People throughout the colonies celebrated the event by cheering, ringing bells, and even tearing down statues of King George III. The members of Congress signed it in August. The signers knew that what they were doing could cause them serious personal struggles. They could be accused of treason, which is fighting against your own country, and it's a crime. If they were found guilty, they could be hanged. The fate or future of the new country now depended on the Americans who would sacrifice to win the war for independence. In 1776, the phrase, "all men are created equal," did not apply to everyone in society. The rights of women, African Americans, and Native Americans were not recognized. But the Declaration was one step forward for us to have individual rights. The Declaration established the idea that the United States government would be based on the ideas of freedom, equality, and protecting people's rights. The story of American history ever since 76 has, in many ways, been the story of how the promise of the Declaration of Independence has shaped our nation. And then this is a copy of the printing press used to make copies of the Declaration of Independence. Horse riders carried copies to people in distant colonies. Write how people share important documents today. And then the last one is number 8. In your own words, what is the main idea of the Declaration of Independence? And they give you 3 really big lines there, so try to fill those up. This is one of the most important things we're going to study all year, guys. I really want you to give this assignment some serious thought and care when you do the work. Capital letters, periods, really important thoughts you're having. All right, thank you.